All right, following Monday's sports wagering action, we are 3-0 with a push in our last 4 NBA tier package picks on BrockPage.com. And the link for that package is in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $2,700 during that stretch. We're also 4-0 in our last 4 $1.99 daily best plays on that very same webpage. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, it's only going to cost you just $1.99. And the link for that package is also in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $3,600 during that stretch as well. And as always, guys, all the picks that I give out on BrockPage.com, they're my personal bets, games that I personally have action on. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into some college basketball action. Georgia takes on Florida, and that's going to be a 6:30 p.m. Eastern start time on Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. Happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. The weekend is right around the corner. Now, the Florida Gators are minus 14 in this matchup here. Total's 146.5. Now, Florida got the W in 6 out of their last 8 ball games, and they covered a whole bunch of numbers during that span. Now, Florida's also 10-3 straight up on their home court, and they're limiting their competition to just 60 points per contest in Gainesville. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, big Colin Castleton, he's averaging 15.5 points a game along with 8 rebounds. Good to see him back in action after a couple games off with an injury. Meanwhile, Ty Appleby, he's scoring over 10.5 points a game himself, along with 2 rebounds and 4 assists. They're taking on a Georgia team who's winless on the road this year, and they're allowing 81 points a game when traveling. Meanwhile, offensively on the other end of the court, the Bulldogs have been little threat shooting from three land. They're actually making just 29% of their three-pointers away from home. Now, total-wise, Georgia saw 4 out of their last 7 ball games fall under the posted number. They're also 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with the Gators. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, Florida's gone 9-4 to the under in their last 13 at home. I'm going to lean toward Florida minus 14 and the under 146.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Cincinnati versus USF, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, Cincinnati's minus 7 on the road, totals 117. The Bearcats did fail to cover in their last 3 straight, and they suffered outright losses to Houston and Temple during that stretch. Now, the Bearcats also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6 road games, and they're shooting only 38% from the field when they travel. They're taking on a South Florida team who's got a winning record at home this year, and they also went 60% against the number in their last 10 meetings with Cincy. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Caleb Murphy, he's averaging 12 points a game along with 3 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Javon Green, he's averaging just about double-digit points a game himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Bulls have been pretty terrific on the defensive end of the court. They're allowing just 60 points a game in the Yuengling Center, and they're limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field there. Now, total-wise, USF is 10-1 to the under in front of their home fans. Meanwhile, Cincy's gone 13-8 to the under in their last 21 ball games. I'm going to lean toward the South Florida Bulls plus 7 and the under 117. All right, next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Georgia Tech versus Miami. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Miami Hurricanes are minus 9 at home, totals 143.5. But as good as they've been offensively this year, the Canes did fail to cover in 3 out of their last 5. And they also have a losing record against the spread at home this year. Now, Miami's biggest problem this season has been their defense. They're allowing nearly 73 points per contest at the Watsco Center. They're also facing a Georgia Tech team here on Wednesday who got the W in 3 out of their last 5. And they're limiting their competition to just 30% shooting from three land. Now, scoring-wise, Michael DeVoe is making 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging nearly 19 points a game. Meanwhile, Dallin Coleman is making 46% of his shots from three-land himself. When it comes to the total in this one, Georgia Tech went 4-1 to the over in their last 5 road games. They were also 6-3 to the over in their last 9 contests at any location. Meanwhile, Miami, on the other side of things, they saw overs recently with Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse. I'm going to lean toward Georgia Tech +9 in the over 143.5. Next contest, it is going to be Houston versus SMU, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The Houston Cougars are -8 away from home. Total's 138.5. And despite their incredible winning streak right now, Houston did fail to cover the point spread recently against the likes of Tulane, Tulsa, and Wichita State. Now they're taking on an SMU team who got the W in 8 out of their last 10 themselves, and they haven't lost a game yet this year at home. Kendrick Davis is scoring 19.5 points per contest, along with 4 boards and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Marcus Weathers is scoring 11 points a game himself, along with 7 rebounds. Now, the Mustangs are averaging over 78 points per contest at home, and they're doing a pretty nice job shooting the 3-ball. Now, total-wise, SMU saw their last 5 straight fall under the line, 7-1 to the under in their last 8. Meanwhile, Houston went 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with SMU, so if you're into historical trends, plenty of unders to go around. I'm going to lean toward SMU +8 in the under 138.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Louisville versus Notre Dame, 7 o'clock East. Notre Dame is -8 with the total at 134.5. Now, the Irish got the W in 8 out of their last 10 ball games, and they actually went 80% against the spread during that stretch. Notre Dame's also 9-1 straight up at home this season, and they're limiting their competition to just 62 points a game in those contests. Now, scoring-wise, Dane Goodwin's averaging 14.5 points a game, along with 5 rebounds and 47% shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, Blake Wesley, he's averaging 14 points per contest himself, along with 3 boards and a couple assists. Now, they're taking on a Louisville team who lost their last 5 straight, and they also dropped 8 out of their last 9. Now, Louisville covered the point spread in only 1 road game this season, and they find themselves shooting only 40% from the field when they travel. Now, total-wise, 7 out of these teams' last 10 meetings together did fall under the line. The Cardinals also saw 5 out of their last 8 ball games, this season fall under the posted number as well. Meanwhile, Notre Dame, on the other side of things, they are 6-3 to the under in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Notre Dame -8 and the under 134.5. All right, next ball game I have for you. It is going to be Ohio State versus Rutgers, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off at the Rack. Ohio State is -4 on the road. Total's 137.5. But despite being favored on the road in this one, Ohio State did fail to cover the point spread here recently against the likes of Penn State, Wisconsin, and Indiana. Now, the Buckeyes have also got themselves a losing record on the road this year, and they give up nearly 74 points a game when they travel. They're taking on a Rutgers squad who's 11-2 straight up at the Rack, and they're limiting their competition to just 59 points a game there. Now, scoring-wise, Ron Harper Jr. is averaging over 15.5 points a game, along with 6 rebounds and 41% shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, Geo Baker, he's scoring nearly a dozen points a game himself, along with 2 boards and 4 assists. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Rutgers' last 8 fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Ohio State saw unders recently with Penn State, Indiana, and Wisconsin. I'm going to lean toward Rutgers +4 and the under 137.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Richmond versus George Mason, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, George Mason is -2 with the total at 138, but despite being the slight favorite in this one, George Mason is on a 3-game losing streak, and they're making just 65% of their free throws at home. They're taking on a Richmond school who won 6 out of their last 7 themselves, and they also have a .750 win percentage on the road this year. Tyler Burton's drilling nearly 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging 16 points a game. Meanwhile, Grant Golden scoring over 14.5 points per contest himself, along with 6 boards and 3 assists. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Spiders are holding their competition to just 29% shooting from three-land on the road. When it comes to the total in this one, Richmond 6-2 to the under away from home this season. The Spiders are, they also saw their last 6 straight outings at any location fall under the line as well. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, George Mason saw unders recently with UMass, Dayton, and this very Richmond team. I'm going to lean toward the Richmond Spiders +2 in the under 138. Next ball game, it is going to be Wake Forest versus NC State. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Wake Forest is -4 on the road, totals 152.5. Now the Deeks got the W in 8 out of their last 10 ball games, and they're actually amongst the best scoring teams in the country. Wake Forest averages nearly 80 points a game, and they currently rank in the top 5 in the nation in offensive field goal percentage on the road. These guys are actually making over 50% of their field goals when they travel. Alondis Williams is scoring just about 20 points a game, along with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. Meanwhile, teammate Jake LaRavia is making nearly 40% of his three-pointers himself. He's also scoring 15 points a game as well. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Deeks are amongst the best defensive rebounding teams on the road in the ACC. They're taking on an NC State group who allows nearly 75 points a game at home. And they're amongst the worst in the conference in defensive boards. Meanwhile, offensively on the other end of the court, the Wolfpack's making just 41% of their field goals when they travel. So we're seeing significant problem areas on both ends of the court for NC State. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, NC State saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the line. Meanwhile, Wake Forest went 5-1 to the over in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Wake Forest -4 in the over 152.5. Next contest, it is going to be Xavier versus Seton Hall, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Seton Hall is -3 at home, totals 142.5. And despite the potential absence of Bryce Aiken, the Pirates are still winning 75% of their home games this year, and they're scoring nearly 80 points a game at the Prudential Center. Jared Roden scoring over 15 points a game along with 7 rebounds. Meanwhile, Miles Cale is averaging just about double-digit points a game along with 4 rebounds himself. Now, defensively, the Pirates are limiting their competition to just 39% shooting from the field. They're taking on a Xavier team who failed to cover the point spread in 8 out of their last 10. And in addition to that, they're scoring only 69 points a game on the road. Now, total-wise, Xavier went 4-2 to the over in their last 6 meetings with Seton Hall. Meanwhile, the Pirates, on the other side of things, they saw overs recently with DePaul, UConn, and Villanova. I'm going to lean towards Seton Hall -3 in the over 142.5. All right, next ball game. A little Ivy League action. I'm talking about Yale versus Harvard, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Yale's -1 on the road, totals 140.5. But despite being favored on the road here, the Bulldogs lost 5 out of their last 8 away from home. And they're shooting just 39% from the field when they travel. Now, Yale's also scoring just 66 points a game in their away contests. They're taking on a Harvard team who's winning 70% of their games at home. And they're also scoring 77 points per contest in Cambridge. Lucas Sakota, he's draining 43% of his shots from beyond the arc. And he's also averaging 11.5 points a game. Meanwhile, Noah Kirkwood, he's scoring over 17.5 points per contest himself, along with 5 boards and 3 assists. When it comes to defensive play, well, the Crimson's allowing only 67 points a game in the Pavilion. When it comes to the total in this one, Harvard saw overs recently with Penn and Columbia. There were also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Yale. Meanwhile, the Bulldogs, on the other side of things, they saw 6 out of their last 10 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Harvard +1 in the over 140.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Baylor versus Kansas State. And that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Baylor is -6 on the road, totals 135.5. But as good as Baylor's been this season, they may have to go to work again without their leading scorer, L.J. Cryer. Now, the Bears also failed to cover in their last 3 straight, and they're allowing 70 points a game on the road. Now, they're taking on a Kansas State team who covered the point spread in 5 out of their last 7, and they're also winning nearly 70% of their contests at home this year. Nigel Loudpack is scoring 17 points a game along with 3 rebounds and 2 assists. Now, Pack's also drilling nearly 44% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, teammate Marquise Powell, he's scoring nearly a dozen points a game himself, along with 3 rebounds and 5 assists. Now, the Wildcats have been really tough defensively this season. They're actually in the top 5 in the country in guarding the 3-ball. And in addition to that, they're actually limiting their competition to just 61 points a game at home. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, Kansas State saw unders recently with Ole Miss, Texas Tech, and this very Baylor team. They're also 7-5 to the under in their last 12 at home. Meanwhile, Baylor, on the other side of things, they saw unders recently with Kansas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. I'm going to lean toward Kansas State +6 in the under 135.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Tulane versus Memphis, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Memphis Tigers are -8.5, totals 148. Now, Memphis is currently on a 3-game winning streak, and they boast a record of 9-2 straight up at home. The Tigers are actually scoring nearly 79 points a game in the FedEx Forum, and they're making 49% of their field goals there. Jalen Duren is scoring nearly 11 points a game, along with 7 rebounds and 2.5 blocks. Meanwhile, DeAndre Williams is averaging double-digit points a game himself, along with 5 rebounds. Now they're taking on a Tulane squad who lost 5 out of their last 7 themselves on the road, and they gave up 71 points a game in those very contests I just mentioned. Now, when it comes to rebounding the basketball, well, the Green Wave is amongst the worst in the country on both ends of the court. These guys have really struggled getting offensive and defensive rebounds. Now, total-wise, Tulane 60% to the under in their last 10 outings. Meanwhile, Memphis, on the other side of things, they saw 4 out of their last 6 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Memphis -8.5 and the under 148. All right, next contest. It is going to be Alabama versus Ole Miss, and that's going to be an 8:30 Eastern tip-off. Alabama's -5 with a total at 143.5. And, for being favored by a couple of buckets on the road here, the Crimson Tide, they lost 6 out of their last 9 ball games, and they've been pretty bad on the road this year. As a matter of fact, Bama's gotten the W in just 1 road game this season, and they're giving up nearly 83 points a game in their travels. Now, they're taking on an Ole Miss squad who's 10-4 straight up at home, and they're limiting their competition to just 29% shooting from 3-land there. Now, scoring-wise, Matt Murrell. There you go. It only took you 7 times to say it. Matthew Murrell is scoring over 10.5 points per contest, along with 3 rebounds and nearly 40% shooting from 3-land. Meanwhile, Nyseer Brooks is averaging just about double-digit points a game himself, along with 8 boards. Now, total-wise, Ole Miss saw overs recently with LSU, Mississippi State, and Auburn. Meanwhile, Alabama went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ole Miss +5 in the over 143.5. Next game, it is going to be Georgetown versus DePaul, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. DePaul is -10 at home here. Total's 146. But as bad as Georgetown on the other side has been this year, I'm just not sure DePaul is good enough, even at home, to cover this double-digit number. I mean, Georgetown's been really, really bad, but like DePaul hasn't been great either. And this is a huge number for them to be laying, especially for a team who hasn't beaten anybody by double digits since December 7th. And they're actually just 2-9 straight up in their last 11 ball games. Now, they may have to go to work here tonight without Johnson and Freeman Liberty. DePaul is also giving up 71 points a game in front of their home fans this year. And if you're into historical trends, this is pretty alarming. They actually lost 12 out of their last 14 hosting the Hoyas. Georgetown travels well to DePaul. And of course, speaking of Georgetown, believe it or not, they've covered the point spread in 4 out of their last 7, with covers over the likes of Seton Hall, Butler, and Villanova. Now, the Hoyas are also scoring 72 points a game on the offensive end of the court. Aminu Muhammad is averaging over 13.5 points per contest, along with 7 rebounds. Meanwhile, Donald Carey, he's making 43% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 13 points a game. Now, total-wise, Georgetown saw overs recently with St. John's, UConn, and Villanova. Meanwhile, DePaul is 9-4 to the over in their last 13 at home. I'm going to lean toward Georgetown plus 10 in the over 146. Next ball game, it is going to be Loyola Chicago versus Bradley, 9 p.m. East. Loyola's -4 with a total at 131.5. And as good as the Ramblers have been on the road this year, these guys have actually been pretty bad covering the point spread here lately. Now, Loyola's just 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 ball games, and they're scoring only 67 points a game on the road. They're taking on a Bradley team who plays stifling defense in front of their home fans. They're allowing only 61 points a game in the Carver Arena, and they're limiting their competition to just 38% shooting from the field there. Now, scoring-wise, Terry Roberts is averaging 15 points a game, along with 5 boards and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Rink Half-Mast is scoring nearly a dozen points a game himself, along with 8 rebounds. And speaking of rebounds, well, there's really not many in the country who do it better than Bradley. I know that sounds crazy, but they're currently in the top 15 in the nation in offensive boards per game. Now, when it comes to the scoring, well, 5 out of Bradley's last 8 ball games fell under the posted number. The Braves also went 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Loyola. Meanwhile, the Ramblers saw 5 out of their last 7 road games fall under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Bradley plus 4 and the under 131.5. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Minnesota versus Nebraska. That's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Minnesota's -2 with a total at 143.5. Now, the Gophers are allowing only 68 points per contest on the defensive end of the court, and they're also limiting their opponents to just 30% shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, on the offensive end of the court, well, Jamison Battle, he's averaging nearly 17 points a game, along with 6 boards. Meanwhile, Peyton Willis, he's making over 43% of his three-pointers, and he's also averaging 16 points a game. Now, they're taking on a Nebraska club who's on a 10-game losing streak. They're also allowing 79 points per contest. When it comes to the total in this one, the Cornhuskers went 70% to the over in their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, Minnesota's 6-2 to the over in their last 8 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota -2 in the over 143.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Pitt versus Florida State. That's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Florida State's -10.5, totals 130. Now, the Noles are averaging 77 points a game in Tallahassee, and they're winning 73% of those contests. Caleb Mills is scoring 13 points a game, along with 2 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Matthew Cleveland's averaging double-digit points a game himself, along with 5 rebounds. Now, they're taking on a Pitt team who lost 6 out of their last 7, and they actually got the W in just 1 road game this year. Now, Pitt's been pretty pathetic offensively. Really no other way I can say it. You can't sugarcoat it. They're horrible offensively. They're scoring only 59 points a game on the road, and they're making only 40% of their field goals in that same category. Now, total-wise, Pitt did see overs recently with Wake Forest and Virginia, so, kind of ironic there. But anyway, Florida State on the other side, they are 64% to the over in front of their home crowd. I'm going to lean toward Florida State minus 10.5 in the over 130. All right, next ball game. It is going to be Tennessee versus Mississippi State, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Tennessee's -2 on the road with the total at 135.5. And although the Vols have been really good lately, they do still have a losing record on the road, and they're allowing nearly 70 points a game in their travels. They're taking on a Mississippi State team who's been darn near unbeatable at home. The Bulldogs are currently 12-1 straight up in front of their home fans, and they're averaging nearly 77 points a game in that same category. Iverson Molinar's averaging over 18 points a game, along with 3 rebounds and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Garrison Brooks is dropping 11 points a game himself, along with 6 boards. When it comes to defensive play in this one, the Bulldogs are limiting their competition to just 63 points a game in the Humphrey Coliseum. Now, total-wise, Mississippi State is 8-5 to the over in their last 13 home games. They also went 80% to the over in their last 10 ball games at any location. Meanwhile, Tennessee saw 5 out of their last 9 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Mississippi State +2 in the over 135.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. And that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. The Texas Tech Red Raiders are -2.5 with the total at 128. And as good as the Red Raiders have been here recently, they did lose 4 out of their last 6 on the road. As a matter of fact, this is one of the worst road scoring teams in the country. They're averaging only 61 points a game in their travels, and they're making just 24% of their three-pointers in that same category. Now, they're taking on an Oklahoma team who still got the W in 8 out of their last 12 home games despite their recent struggles. They haven't been playing great basketball lately, but they're still really, really good at home. I don't think this is going to be a popular play. I think we're not going to be on the public side when it comes to this lean here. But anyway, the Sooners are also playing very good defensively in front of their home crowd. They're actually allowing only 60 points a game at the Lloyd Noble Center, and they're limiting their competition to just 29% shooting from three-land there. Now, scoring-wise, Tanner Groves is averaging 13 points a game along with 5 rebounds. Meanwhile, Umoja Gibson is scoring 12 points a game himself, along with 2 boards and 92% shooting from the stripe. Now, total-wise, 7 out of Oklahoma's last 10 meetings with Texas Tech fell under the line. The Sooners also saw 5 out of their last 8 ball games this season fall under the total as well. Meanwhile, Texas Tech is 4-2 to the under in their last 6 on the road. I'm going to lean toward Oklahoma +2.5 in the under 128. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Cal versus Oregon State. Saving the best for last here. Really good competitive matchup here. Well, it could be competitive. Who knows? I mean, both teams are equally as bad. But anyway, Cal, Oregon State, 11 o'clock East. Oregon State is -1. Total's 135.5. And, well, as bad as the Beavers have been this season, they have proven that they do have the ability to score with the basketball. They're averaging nearly 73 points a game on their home court. And they're also making 48% of their field goals there. Now, Jared Lucas, he's scoring over 13.5 points per contest, along with 2 rebounds and 41% shooting from three-land. Meanwhile, Warith Alatishe is averaging double-digit points a game himself, along with 6 rebounds. Now, they're taking on a Cal team who lost their last 10 straight themselves, and they score only 57 points a game on the road. Now, total-wise, 5 out of the Golden Bears' last 7 road games did fall under the number. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Oregon State -1 and the under 135.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 3-0 with a push in our last 4 NBA tier package picks following Monday's sports wagering action. I like Florida minus 14, under 146.5. USF plus 7, under 117. Georgia Tech plus 9, over 143.5. SMU plus 8, under 138 and a hook. Notre Dame minus 8, under 134.5. Rutgers plus 4, under 137 and a hook. Richmond plus 2, under 138. Wake Forest minus 4, over 152.5. Seton Hall minus 3, over 142.5. Harvard plus 1, over 140 and a hook. I also like Kansas State plus 6, under 135.5. Give me Memphis minus 8.5, under 148. I'm also leaning toward Ole Miss plus 5, over 143.5. Georgetown plus 10, over 146. I also like Bradley plus 4, under 131.5. Give me Minnesota minus 2, over 143 and a hook. I'm also leaning toward Florida State minus 10.5, over 130. Give me Mississippi State plus 2, over 135 and a hook. I also like the Oklahoma Sooners plus 2.5, under 128. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are also 4-0 in our last 4 $1.99 daily best plays on brockpage.com as well. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Oregon State minus 1 in the under 135.5. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a package here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. You can opt out at any time, by the way. You can opt out. You're not like you're not in for life. You can opt out at any time, but you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that if you continue to opt in. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. If you guys want to get access to every single pick, every single bet that I give out on that website, you're going to want to think about signing up for my board member tier package. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Tuesday or Wednesday to you, depending on when you're watching this. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.